Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our free class today for our November free classes that we're offering all month, every Monday and Wednesday. Today, we are going to be talking about how the F to break down a test question. A lot of people know the content, but they have difficulty with actually breaking down the question. And this on its own is a real skill, and it goes beyond how great someone is as a practitioner, how much they actually know. It's a completely different skill set that you need to practice, and we're going to help you do just that. So to start off, the breaking down of a question, we're going to talk about all the different parts of how to break it down. So step one, you want to check out the last sentence first. What does this mean? There's going to be a lot of stuff written, and we're going to give you some examples, but you need to look at what about this long situation am I answering to, right? So you're looking at the question, you're going to look at that last sentence first. And what do you do after that? Chill, let us get there, please. Thanks. Okay. Well, why do we start with the last sentence? It will allow you to know whose behavior you're looking at, right? In a scenario or in everyday life, even right now, looking at everyone, I could say there are, I could be like, okay, Lauren's sitting there taking notes, collecting data as my cardio shirt. Casey's sitting there coughing up a storm, drinking water with an IRT of about 0.3 seconds in between each sip. I'm sitting here talking, whatever it is. Then I need to know, well, whose behavior are you asking about? Like, what do you want to know about all this whole scenario I've told you, right? So we want to know, well, right there, I just told you about 3 people's behavior. Which part of it, right? So you might see things at the end of the scenario of a test question. And remember, this test is applied, right? Meaning applied, you're going to see situations that these different concepts are applied to. So you're going to have to look at the question and say, what would you do first, right? This is an example of. This is not an example of. In this scenario, Megan's behavior or Casey's behavior, right? What is the best next step? Okay, what is the best? I hate that, but because that probably means there's going to be a lot of good answers, right? They're not going to be like, which one of these should you probably do with a client? Dump a pile of shit on their head, staple their hand to a wall with a stapler, use an assessment to assess the function of the behavior, or give them paper cuts down their entire spine. Like, they're all going to be good answers.
You're like very morbid right now.
Look, it's been a long night. Okay. It's been a long night. You never know what you're going to get with me. Okay. So check out the answer choices. So now that we've gone through the final part of the question, we're going to check out the answer choices that you have available. We're not just reading these, we're recalling information we know about each answer choice. So don't worry, we have not given you a question yet. Let's say you see these answer choices, right? And I say, okay, answer choice A.
It's taking me about 30 minutes to figure out how to get onto this.
Julie McHenry, can you please mute yourself?
Sorry, I'll move into just. No, I've been.
I can't mute.
Please make sure that you're muted. I will mute you if not, but it's hard for me to scroll through everyone and find it happening. This is a direct order.
Julie McHenry, please mute yourself.
She's muted.
Sorry. Okay, cool. All right, so we want to check out the answer choices. What do we know about the different answer choices? Well, I'm going to go through them. Okay, so this is when you come back to what you've been studying. You're like, okay, SDP. Shit, I'm always confused on that. I know it's a discriminative stimulus for punishment, but okay, right? A stimulus equivalent, okay, that's that reflexivity, symmetry, transitivity, okay, right, I'm going through it. Faulty stimulus control. Oh, I know that one. That's the booger on the card Leah told me about. And stimulus control, that's the stimulus controlling. Okay, right? So ask yourself what you know about these answers. So that's exactly what you're doing here. So here, I'm writing down what I know. So assuming that I actually knew all these different things about them, right? So SDP signals that punishment's available, right? Stimulus equivalents, trained and untrained responses, teaching of reflexivity, symmetry, transitivity, like I was saying. Faulty stimulus control, the behaviors occurring under any relevant part of the stimulus, right? And stimulus control, the behaviors brought out by the stimulus, learning history, the SD signals reinforcement, and when it's not there, the S delta signals no reinforcement, right? I'm just going through what I know about these. Now, is it likely that you're going to get a question and you don't know what, I don't know, stimulus equivalence is, let's say, okay? Let's say you saw this and you're like, and by the way, why are these answers saying A, C, D, E? Something must have switched when we did this. I must have like pressed enter too many times, but
Teaching loosely, guys, you get it. Goes there.
teaching loosely, the real test will say A, B, C, D. Sorry, we were formatting the slides and I think something happened here. But you should be able to answer even if they give you X, Y, Z, and A, okay? Anyway, so let's say that you don't really know about stimulus equivalents. My tip for you is, when you see a test question, know what you know really well, okay? I'm telling you, for this test, you are never going to know every concept it talks about. Sometimes the concepts they make up sound like a really great, and it might not even be a real concept, okay? Like they might say like, let me think of a word, trying to put things together, like, you know, formal equivalence or something, right? Those are both words you've heard, but we've never actually used that specific word, right? Sometimes you're going to actually need to use your basic English to be like, okay, formal means what something looks like, equivalent meaning the same thing, but sometimes it's total bullshit work. So what I say is know what you know really well, because you could at least either choose if that thing that you know, like I know a lot about faulty stimulus control. That means I'm gonna know if that is part of the answer, right? If that one is the correct answer, or I could at least cross that one out as not being the correct answer. So know what you know really well and go in confidently with that. Now we're reading with purpose and intent. Now you're reading with the intent to look for keywords from the answer choices, right? Okay. Now, I would like you guys to read this question. Oh, there's a problem.
What? Oh,
We wrote it last time about Katie, and then Casey decided to change it to me today.
I thought it was more fitting because this is you.
Don't worry, it's no one trolling question, it's our own question. Stole it from ourselves. Casey, can you make me co-host so I can meet people? All right, so now we go over the last sentence, right? So here I would say, hold up. Yeah, I'm still doing this.
Just get rid of the annotation.
I know. Why is it doing this? Usually on my iPad, this is not for me, guys. Just make Katie Leah, all right? And maybe we won't put this video on YouTube. It seems like there's a lot of issues we've had today. All right, so can't tell where it's like freezing. All right. All right, so now we read the actual part of it, right? So first I was going to, where do I draw? Okay. I went through the actual question. I said, now Liat only shares her sexcapades with her work friends and keeps her stories to herself. That at work. This is an example of, right? Now I go back, that should have been on the last slide. Now I go back and read the other parts before, right? And it says, Liat loves the shock factor when she tells one of her sexcapade stories to her friends. Liat didn't realize her boss wouldn't enjoy the same stories when she overhears them in the break room. Liat's get written up at work for her stories, okay? Now Liat only shares them with her friends and keeps her stories to herself at work. Okay, so that last sentence, asking, what is that last sentence? The fact that Liat only shares her stories with her friends, right? It's not asking about something specific, like something being like signaling punishment, right? It's not an SDP. There's nothing about stimulus equivalence. I said that faulty stimulus control was about an irrelevant dimension, right? Nope. And stimulus control, I said, I know that's when in the presence of certain things, it's reinforced, and then of an SD, and then in the presence of an S delta, it's punished. So my answer would be stimulus control. Right? And I did that and I worked in that order. Now, I feel very naked without my iPad. Okay, now let's see if I could click next. All right. Now let's go through this together utilizing our strategy. Who wants to volunteer to do this with me?
I do.
I'll go.
Who said I do?
Georgia.
All right, Georgia. Hey. All right, so what is going to be step one when breaking down this question according to our method?
So we read the last sentence first, which is, which measurement do you decide to use?
Perfect. All right, what do we do next?
We look at our answer choices. So we go through A, B, C, and D. So we've got momentary time sampling, we've got IRT, we've got whole interval recording, and we've got total duration.
All right, perfect. And then you're going to go in your head and tell me, like, what do you personally know about each of these different things? Like, give me one fact if you can. And if you don't know, that's fine too, because you could know what you know really well.
So for momentary, I would think at the end, so discontinuous, looking just right at the end. IRT, I would be thinking, okay, between the two, answer segments when they give their answers or, that information. Whole interval, I would be thinking, I'm looking at the whole time, I'm recording the whole time, also discontinuous. And then total duration, I would just be counting up the total amount of time that something took.
Beautiful. Okay, now what do we do?
So then I would now go up to the question and read it.
Let's do it.
You have a client who loves to meow like a cat under the table during her session with the RBT. It lasts for up to 10 minutes at a time. The RBT reports that it is difficult to work on any targets because of the amount of meowing. You go and observe a session and decide to use blank to measure the meowing under the desk during the 60-minute session. Which measurement do you decide to use?
Elliot, go to the next slide.
Okay.
Because we break it down more on the next slide.
No, hold on. I just have to clear. Okay.
So now it's taking out that like last kind of sentence, right? You go and observe a session and you decide to use blank to measure the meowing under the desk during the 60-minute session. So what can you get from these sentences? Well, if I'm pulling this out, I would say, well, a session is 60 minutes. What measurement? So it's talking about something with measurement. Some type of behavior is occurring, right? It's meowing. All right, great. When I read my answer choices, I need to be on the lookout for measurement. That's what I would say to myself. And then the next slide, Leah, is breaking down the answer choices like Georgia just did. And she did beautifully, so.
Beautiful, exactly.
And remember, whole interval is used mainly to increase a behavior. So I probably don't want to increase meowing, right? And we know it's happening for like 10 minutes at a time. So that's a long duration. So that would kind of stick out for me.
All right, so we did this. We read first the last question. You did great, Georgia. Then second, we went through the answer choices. But now we're going to go through and choose an answer. Based on this, Georgia, what answer would you choose?
So this is where I start getting nervous because I'm like,
That's okay, good. If you could do it with us staring at you.
yeah, seriously. So I would look at it and say, okay, go to observe, decide to use meowing during the 60-minute sessions. I would start going between whole interval recording and momentary time sampling. I would take out momentary because it doesn't say anything about the classroom being busy or not having enough time to really observe everything. And then I would go back to whole interval recording and I would probably pick that one.
So which one would you choose?
C, whole interval recording.
Are you confident in that?
No, not really.
Okay, well, whole interval recording. So if we want to decrease.
I was going to say, remember when I just talked about the slide previously, like when we use whole interval recording, right, we are using it for basically when you want to increase the behavior and it's a discontinuous measurement procedure. So I wouldn't use that because I don't want to increase this meowing, right? It's not going to give me the best picture. Momentary time sampling, I would take out also because it's mainly used to peek up at the end of the interval and just see if people are either on task or what, it's like more for groups in the sense. So I'd cross those off. And we're not looking at the time between the meowing, right? We are looking, if it lasts for up to 10 minutes at a time, and I want to see in that 60-minute session how often they're meowing, you always want to ask yourself, what would the data, if I took it this way, look like? What would it tell the teacher or tell me? So total duration would tell me how long during the 60-minute session she's meowing, because it's saying it's happening up to 10 minutes at a time. So that's a very long duration of a behavior. So I would be looking at total duration.
Now, let me tell you something, Georgia. You have an opportunity right now to focus your learning. So what I tell you guys is the best thing you could do is be answering as many questions as you can. Because right now, Georgia, I guarantee you will never miss a question on this again. And you will now open your Cooper book to the specific page that this is on. And you're going to be like, why did I think it was whole interval recording? Well, now I know that whole interval, right, is used to increase a behavior. And so now you're going to go through and read it. And the only way that you could actually learn this information for detail is by answering questions, seeing what you get wrong, and letting that focus what you are going to, little section you're going to read about now and become an expert on.
Oh yeah, I'm super psyched that I did this because.
No, it's the best thing you could do. And you know what? If you send us an email, you just won a reinforcement sticker set for putting yourself out there. So props to you. Send us an email at contact@studynotes88.
By the way.
Okay, let's see if I can clear this annotation. All right. Thank you guys for working with me. I'm really into my iPads. This is a little scary. All right, if you know what I'm talking about, those effing negation questions. What is negation? Like, are we negotiating? That's what I used to think of, like negotiate, like no. Negation. Negation, talking about those questions that are negative. You are looking for what it is and what it is not. These types of questions are why it's important to know the advantage of disadvantage of when or when not to use a task list item, right? So what does that mean, right? It's going to say, well, so when you learn about a specific concept, right? Let's say punishment. You learn like what it means in general. Okay, so it's punishment if it's a consequence and it decreases the future frequency of a behavior, right? Now, you also, in our collectives, we're always teaching you like what are advantages of using punishment and what are disadvantages, right? An advantage, right? So this is the type of questions, the not questions are when you need to know advantages and disadvantages. It's like, well, you would not use punishment for this, right? So that means you need to know when you would use it, right? I need to know 3 reasons why I would use it. And then one of them is not going to be a time I would use it. So you need to know when you use different procedures or when it would hold true to a certain concept. That is with the not questions, okay? Now, so like an example would be like, you would not use punishment as your first attempt at modifying a behavior unless it was self-injurious, right? All right. Now, let me tell you guys something really quickly. Why is it doing this? Work with me, baby. Work with, okay. So when you get a test question, it might occasionally bold or highlight or all caps the word not, but it likely won't, okay? So it might just read the exact same and say, which of the following is not recommended when using high probability request sequence, okay? Now, if you're the average person reading this quickly, Eliran has actually decided to take the real estate exam. And last night we were going through questions together on YouTube and it said something and he's like, oh, it's A. Because he read it quickly and it was like, which of the following is not part of whatever it is not true about a lender. I don't know what it was, but here, like which of the following is not recommended when using high probability request sequence? The word not may not be as redundant as it is here, but I need you, this is a rule, to never read the word not as not again, okay? I'm about to make you remember this, okay? If you see something, you're gonna be like, if you see the word not, it's no longer just not. It's now not, okay? You're gonna think of me doing that anytime you read the word not in a question, okay? I'm willing to make myself look like an idiot for all of you guys. When you read a test question, you now wanna make it a mystery and a fun game to see the word not, okay? You're on a search looking for the word not, okay, so which of the following is not recommended when using high probability request sequence? Everyone, relax. We're going to use some of the skills. Let's flip the script. And this is also an opportunity to use your whiteboard on the test. And if you don't know what that is, that's your white laminated piece of paper you're allowed to jot on. And you could flip the script to what is. So, which of the following is recommended when using high probability request sequence? So, which of the following? I overcompensate when I haven't slept the night before, but I'm at least happy that's a permanent product of me on Instagram, like making videos for you at 3:30 in the morning. So you understand why I'm a little crazy today. But regardless, so now which of the following is recommended when using high probability request sequence? So which of these things are true, right? Is it true that, and who wants to volunteer over here? Anyone different do we have?
I'll go.
Okay, Stephanie, look at that. That is a latency that I like to see. Okay, so is it true that you use high probability requests that are in a learner's repertoire?
Use high probability requests that are in the learner's repertoire.
Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, it is, right? So for high probability request sequence, I'm not gonna, if I want you to do something that's already gonna be difficult for you, I'm not gonna be like, hey, do me a favor. Do 97 push-ups, then run 6 miles, then come back here and build this hard Lego project that I wanted you to do, if that was the behavior, right? I'm getting things that are easy, like, hey, touch your nose, clap your hands, get a cup of water, and come build this complicated Lego structure here, right?
Yes.
So perfect. So that is true. Yes.
Would that also be considered behavior momentum?
That's what happens when you implement a high probability request sequence. You're using it to build behavior momentum. They're different.
Okay.
Now, use high P requests that are shorter in duration.
Yes.
Yep. You want like quick and easy, like let's get these done to get to the point. Right? And that's what builds that momentum. Is it true that you delay acknowledging learners' compliance?
No.
No, but they use great words in there. So that's like there just to completely F you up.
Mm-hmm.
And then D, typically use 2 to 5 high P requests to 1 low P request.
Yes.
True. So now, which one doesn't belong? Which one is not a part of the group?
C.
C, perfect. And that's exactly what you need to do with not questions. LOL, someone in the chat wrote, the negation questions are what I'm missing on the box. This is great. And I will not forget now. Good. All right.
I have to keep that in my head and not say it out loud in the exam.
Yeah, no, don't. You'll get kicked out.
All right, don't worry. Lots of people say they hear our voice in the exam. All right. So now here's another question. Who wants to be my volunteer over here?
I will.
Okay, Louise, is that how you say your name?
Lois.
Lois. Even better, my preschool director's name. Okay, Lois. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna read this. I wrote it today on little sleep, so let's hope that I wrote it correctly, okay? But I think it's good. I'm very, and by the way, guys, I'm very into the fact that Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson are dating. I am just amazed how this dude pulls the hottest chicks. But anyways, you could look that up after. Please don't do it now. Anyways, it's Kim and Pete's first official weekend sleepover. Pete's alarm goes off at 5 a.m. because he has to get to the NBC studio to record a new episode of SNL. Kim is super annoyed because she needs her beauty rest, and it's as if Pete doesn't even hear the alarm going off. He must be super stoned. It takes him 12 minutes before he even presses snooze. The alarm then goes off every 5 minutes after that. He presses snooze again and continues to do this 6 times. Kim is #literally pissed. He finally gets the F up. At this point, Kim is up too. So she calls her butler to bring them coffee and condoms. What measurement system would you use to measure the amount of time it took Pete to initially press the snooze button when the alarm went off the first time? All right, Lois. What is the first thing you do with a question in general?
You look at the end, the question part, like where it says, would you use what measurement system would you use to measure the amount of time it took for Pete to initially press the snooze button when the alarm went off the first time?
Beautiful. Then you're going to go through your answer choices, right?
Right.
What do you know about IRT?
It is between the time that basically you're like ask the question or the SD and you respond.
Beautiful, right? It's the time, yep, from the end delivery of an SD to the start of a response. Perfect. Latency. Oh, sorry, no, the IRT, sorry, is the time in between responses.
Right,
Latency.
that's right. Sorry, yeah, I got
I was just copying you. But great.
I'm sorry, that's right. I get those mixed up and I have to think of, I have a scenario that I think of and I messed it up. So latency is between the SD and the response.
Right, like how much later from the SD does it take someone to actually respond? Latency, right?
Yeah.
But at this point, Kim's like, you're fucking late, right? To answer that.
Yeah.
Okay. C, trials to carry on.
that's how many trials it gets to be to mastery. So
Yep.
how many,
Perfect.
and
And
count
count.
is just how many times.
Beautiful. All right, so now that I've done this, I'm gonna clear this. I'm gonna drop that and move to the next slide. All right, so now what I've done here is something that I wanted to show you guys. I hope this works. Casey's like, Leah, what are you doing? I'll let you use your beautiful mind for this. So let's see if you guys are gonna see this. So we know the end question, right? It said, you told us this, Lois, you said, what measurement system would you use to measure the amount of time it took Pete to initially press the snooze button when the alarm went off the first time, right?
Mhm.
Now I'd go through and read the scenario again. So what is faulty stimulus control? Faulty stimulus control is when some irrelevant part of a stimulus is what someone's responding to. So like, I want to know that I always say this in class, I want to know that when I hold this card up, an individual knows that this is the number 6, right? And
Not
I want
because
to
it's on
know
green paper.
what?
Not because it's just on green paper. So that's the only
Right,
reason.
and then one day I hold this up and they have no idea what number it is, right? They remembered like, oh, it was the green paper is when I say 6, right? What should actually be controlling their response is the number 6 on here. So what should be controlling their response in this question is the final question that it's asking, which we said is, what measurement system would you use to measure the amount of time it took Pete to initially press the snooze button when the alarm went off the first time? Okay.
You can also just go to the next slide because it's already highlighted instead of doing all that drawing, but.
You're right, I could.
Parsimony.
Thanks, Rob. So I did that. I should be the one to know. I literally did that like 45 minutes before class. So what measurement system would you use, right? We're looking at that. So I'm looking at the different parts of the question. So they are going to do things that are going to mess you up, okay? So if it was asking me about the part where it goes up every 5 minutes in between, right? There's like that 5 minutes of silence in between. The answer would be that inner response time. So if it was talking about this part that I'm paying attention to, it would be IRT. If it's talking about the part that it takes him 12 full minutes before he even presses snooze, that's talking about the
Latency.
latency. And that is what it was asking us about. Now, if it is talking about, I mean, either of these two answers, I'm not really sure where they were trying to go with this. He presses snooze again and continues this for 6 times. That could either be count or it's like, okay, it's 6 times till he finally gets the F up. So I guess he meets the criteria. I don't know where they want to go with that, right? But what really matters is what they're asking me about. And they are asking me about the 12 minutes it takes him to get up and press the snooze the initial first time. How much later, right, latency, did it take him to respond? So this is what you need to be doing because they are going to get their answer choices because I'm the one who wrote this and they're going to get it by things that could be true according to other information in the question. Again, it's not going to be like A, latency, B, candy corn, C, piece of paper, D, water bottle, right? It's going to be shit that's in there. So you need to make sure that the correct part of the question is having stimulus control over your answer. Sorry, I get passionate about that. All right, so
Can I ask a question?
using the tool,
Oh, you did. Okay, Lois.
using the tools you have to practice these skills. All right. It's an expensive process and it sucks. However, there's shit you could get, you could answer as many questions as you can, but let's see different things that we have to process. Okay. Now, and when I say it's expensive, some of you guys are gonna be like, not true. I actually found a shit ton of free stuff online. Listen, I've seen that free stuff online. People send us questions about it all the time. And that shit is wrong. Okay. You need to know who is writing your questions. I'm not saying every free resource is wrong, but you need to make sure you are answering questions that are real questions with real information, because as you remember Georgia earlier, if she had got the wrong answer and it said the wrong thing, she would have taken that information and generalized it to go answer her test questions with the wrong information. So just be careful. Go ahead, take as many questions as you can, okay? I mean, these are some things that we offer, but you could go to other companies as well if they're trusted sources. I mean, I just talked about us because I know ours are trusted sources, but no pressure, right? We have our app where you could actually go and answer as many questions as you want. I advise doing that. And any mock you take, ours or not, please make sure it has feedback. It is useless without feedback. All right. Also, another thing we have is question dissection. We now have a new bundle, and we have a live one coming up this Tuesday, but we also have a bundle in our shop, which is made up of, is it 5, Casey? 5?
5 2-hour-long question dissections, each containing 50 different questions that we break down with you, and you read it on your own. It's very much like the test. And then we dissect it a little bit differently than this, more of like feedback that you get on a mock. And it's on, so it's a lot cheaper than buying them individually. And it's 10 hours, 250 questions.
Yeah, 250 questions, that's 10 hours of content. And we give you the opportunity to actually read on your own, then give you the chance to answer it, and then we'll explain it for you. The app, I'll tell you, on Android is almost done. As it better be with how much the developers charge us at this point. Okay, so go through and answer as many as you can. Use the examples in the book. Your book, and if anyone has ever told you any bullshit that you don't need the book to pass the test, even if someone's got a good score without the book, you need the book to pass. Please, I see it so much. People are not reading their book. All right, if it's boring for you to go through an entire chapter and read, that's fine. Just go and answer a question, get it wrong about a whole interval recording, and then go read that little section. Write your own examples. Mocks. Said that. Take mocks. Time to practice your skills. Take data and use the mocks more than just like, you guys are behavior analysts or soon to be behavior analysts. You know how behavior is learned through reinforcement and punishment. If you get it right, you'll do that shit again. So really look over your data and your feedback you're getting back. If you get it wrong, you go learn that information and now you become an expert on that thing you got wrong, right? Remember, this is like really important. No ifs, ands, or buts when it comes to answering questions. Like, no offense, but it's not me personally, so don't think, Leah, you're a bitch. It's the computer machine who's giving the test. They do not give a shit about your personal experience. But in my clinic, we always like just provide the reinforcer immediately. You know, we don't want them to have to wait. I don't care about what your clinic does. I don't care what your school does. I don't care what your child at home does. For taking the test, you need to talk about what Cooper does. And according to the literature, what is the procedure, right? All right, but my supervisor says, I don't care what your supervisor says, unless your supervisor is referencing Cooper. I'm not saying that your supervisor is not the best supervisor in the entire world and the best practitioner, okay? Well, if you have no time to explain, and people are like, well, you could also like, it allows you to put notes in a section that's gonna go back to the test writers. Assume they're not reading that. You're not allowed to like argue your answer. You need A, B, C, or D. All right. So you only can answer based on the information that is provided. If you start to rationalize an answer choice, like, well, it could be this, because like, honestly, if he was hungry, it could be an establishing operation because then the food would be valuable. If it doesn't say he's hungry, It's none of your business to make assumptions for him, okay? Stop. You only have base value on what it says, right? If you're adding information, stop. If you start to infer information, stop, right? If you're like, but he did get M&Ms and I love M&Ms. I don't care what you love. Do you know that he did the behavior again in the future? If he did, then you could say it's reinforcement. But just because you like M&Ms doesn't mean it was a reinforcer for Tommy, okay? Don't be a Regina, she didn't listen. It could have been rule governed behavior, but then it was contingency shaped, just saying. All right. These are skills you have to practice. It's a marathon. A lot of people are like, I'm bored after 20 questions. Dude, same. Make it a game. Make it a game of like, I've been going for this for so long. I'm going to fucking pass this bitch and I'm going to read every detail of this and I'm just going to have so much fun looking for the word not, right? It's a game. It's fun. All right.
That's the last slide.
Last slide, and I can't click. I should have made a nicer ending for you guys, but listen, I like to, keep things wild. You never know when it's going to end. That is what I have for you guys. I really recommend going through, practice this strategy. And the one thing I could say that we didn't put in here, in which I feel really strongly about, and it's one of those things that I'm like, if people just listen to me and saw the value in it, it's not because I like to hear my voice saying this, it's because until you write a question, you won't know, okay? I recommend every person writing your own questions, okay? Because until you write a question, I'll tell you what happens, right? So I was writing this question about Kim Kardashian and Pete today. And I'm like, oh shit. I want the answer to be latency, but wait, how am I going to differentiate? If I wanted it to be trials to criterion, I guess I didn't put the word in there that I said like how many times it took him to answer, which was like what we are considering the correct response, whatever it is, right? So there's little words that are going to, when you write a question yourself, you're like, oh, shit. It's talking about like how long it took the response to happen after. That's going to make it latency. Until you write a question, you won't realize these details. So writing it is the secret ingredient that you can do that is free, and give it to someone else to answer. And they'll be like, it's C. And you're like, no, it's A. They'll be like, no, but it could be C because of this. And you're like, oh, I should have put this word.
Perfect.
All right. That is all I have for you guys today.
Also, good luck to anyone testing soon. I've seen a ton of people in the group that is testing. So crush it, sending you all the good vibes. And remember, you have been preparing for this. Like Liat says, this is like your recital, okay? You're gonna go in and you're gonna crush it because you've been practicing and preparing, and keep that in mind, all right? Love you, mean it. I'm gonna stop the recording.